Monetary policy is primarily concerned with the management of supply of money, but in an economy like India, it is managing the rate of growth of money supply per period. This supply of growth serves certain well-defined social goals. Universally, the best ones are a combination of growth with stability and equity. Stability here primarily means price stability, and in an economy like India, it also means the growth of employment or else the reduction in unemployment, and also a promotion of a healthy balance of payment in the medium run. One also has to take into account that there are a number of sources of lags between the occurrence of an event that brings forth a policy response and the eventual response of the economy. Due to this, the RBI reacts cautiously to any new development, and it is no surprise that policymakers decide the slow and steady approach, even to the point of excessive caution over the speedy, brash approach.
After studying this module, you will be able to understand the effectiveness of monetary policy, know about the different sources of lags, know about the conflict among policymakers. Monetary policy is primarily concerned with the management of supply of money, but in an economy like India, it involves managing the rate of growth of money supply per period. This supply of growth serves certain well-defined social goals. Universally, the best ones are a combination of growth with stability and equity. One also has to take into account that there are a number of sources of lags between the occurrence of an event that brings forth a policy response and the eventual response of the economy. Due to this, the RBI reacts cautiously to any new development, and it is no surprise that policymakers choose the slow and steady approach, even to the point of excessive caution, over the speedy, brash approach.
We begin with the determination of the optimal rate of growth of money supply per period, say a year, for India, which the RBI should pursue as the target rate of growth of money supply. We need this target rate to guide RBI's monetary policy and to serve as a criteria with which to compare the actual rate of growth of money supply. Such a comparison will allow us to assess easily the degree and direction of the departure of actual money supply from its socially desired time path. In a growing economy, the optimal conduct of monetary policy requires that the supply of money is grown to subserve certain well-defined social goals. Talking in terms of the annual rate of growth of money supply, the optimal monetary policy requires that this rate of growth on average is such as to be consistent with the attainment of the desired social goals. It is universally admitted that the best combination of these social goals is growth with stability and equity. Stability here means overall economic stability, but for all practical purposes is generally equated with general price stability. It has been argued cogently that in the Indian context, the pursuit of the above set of goals will mean maximum feasible output and employment in very short run, and also promotion of a healthy balance of payment position in the medium run.
At least three questions need to be discussed here. First, what is the appropriate empirical measure of money? Second, in the context of India's growing economy, what will be the optimal rate of growth of money supply per year? And third, how has the actual money supply behaved over the past 4 decades since 1951 and why? Behavior of actual money supply over past 4 decades. How money supply changes relate to the attainment of social goals. The explanation of this question is provided by the public's demand for real money. This demand indicates the public's absorptive capacity or willingness to hold money in real terms, given the values of the several specifiable key determinants of the public's demand for money. This point is central to the whole concept of money targeting or monetary policy making.
How money supply changes related to the attainment of social goals. The key to the explanation is provided by the public's demand for real money. This demand indicates the public's absorptive capacity or willingness to hold money in real terms, given the values of several specifiable key determinants of public's demand for money. This point is central to the whole concept of money targeting or monetary policy making. Three solution values have been put forward. First, drawing on the statistically derived most common result that the real income elasticity of demand for real money in India is unity. Second, that the best estimate of the expected rate of growth of Indian economy, and third, that the planned or desired rate of inflation should be predetermined. For monetary targeting for price stability, what we mean is long run average stability, not absolutely stable price level for every year. In the context of differential rates of growth of various important sectors of the economy and the intersectoral resource transfers implied in the planning process, some price increase would be inevitable in the process of growth. But correctly speaking, the said resource transfer requires appropriate changes in relative prices and not increases in absolute prices for growth industries. A correct policy could allow increase in some prices with decrease in prices for declining industries. It should not try to protect the latter to necessitate higher prices for growth industries to attract resources. Normally, changes in technology and in tastes and preferences of the public as well as in the distribution of income and wealth are responsible for the growth of sunrise industries, whereas opposite factors induce decay of some other industries. Prices play a second fiddle in the drama unless the government chooses to intervene and protect prices from falling. External shocks such as droughts may cause sharp declines in agricultural output and may raise their prices. However, such a picture has already undergone significant changes due to extension of irrigation facilities in the country, buffer stock, especially wheat and rice, and also of sugar and cotton, operations of the government and public distribution system. They can be strengthened further. It is interesting as well as instructive to note that as a long run phenomena, as predicted by the quantity theory of money, the excess rate of growth of money supply is absorbed by increase in prices.
There are a number of sources of lags between the occurrence of an event that brings forth a policy response and the eventual response of the economy. First is implementation lags. Lags occur between the time a policy action is needed and the time the action occurs. It can be divided into three categories. The first category is information lags. Lags in the availability of information about the state of the economy. The second is recognition lags, or lags in the recognition by the monetary policy maker that a policy action is needed based on the information available to it. The third is legislative lags. Lags in the enactment of the appropriate legislation needed for a policy action to occur.
To take the appropriate policy action, the policy maker must have information about the state of the economy. For example, consider a policy maker with a final target for inflation, real output and unemployment. In this situation, the policy maker must know the price level, real GDP and the unemployment rate before it can respond with an appropriate policy action. But lags occur between a change in the state of the economy and the indicators of that change. For instance, the price level in the United States is measured monthly in case of Consumer Price Index (CPI) and quarterly in the case of GDP deflator. Output can be measured by industrial production measured monthly, or the broader measure, that is real GDP, measured quarterly. Unemployment, which is related to output, is measured monthly. Thus, the monetary policy maker is in a situation where at best it can get only monthly updates on prices and output and quarterly updates on the broadest measures of prices and output. Moreover, these updates occur quite some time after the month or quarter they are measuring. For example, the Consumer Price Index for a given month is announced in the middle of the following month. That is, the CPI for January is announced in the middle of February. Information of the GDP deflator and real GDP is even more delayed. GDP and the GDP deflator for the first quarter of the year, January through March, are announced in a preliminary release in the first week of May, with revisions in June and again in July. Thus, the monetary authority does not have even a preliminary estimate of GDP available until a month after the quarter ends. Of course, there are monthly data on industrial production and unemployment, which give indications of what is happening to real GDP. But even these are announced several weeks after the end of the month to which they apply. Thus, these information lags cause lags in the enactment of monetary policy, since the RBI can hardly respond to events of which it is not aware. Even after the data becomes available, lags occur in the policymakers' recognition of the state of the economy. These recognition lags are compounded by the fact that some data arrive monthly while the other data arrive only quarterly. Sometimes it is clear that output has fallen or that the price level has increased, but other times the data give conflicting messages. For example, the consumer price index might have increased, but the producer price index decreased, and the GDP deflator will not be available for another month or more. Or industrial production might have fallen, but unemployment remained constant. So the output situation is uncertain, and real GDP won't be known for weeks or even months. In such situations, there is a lag in recognition by the monetary authority of the true state of the economy. Finally, for some policy makers, there may be significant legislative lags in policy actions due to lags in enacting any required legislation.
The second type of lag is the effectiveness lag. It is the time between when a policy action is made and when the action results in changes in the economy. For example, if the RBI is trying to target the price level, it might respond to a decline in the consumer price index by increasing the money supply. In our theoretical models, this action immediately increases aggregate demand and the price level. But in practical applications of monetary policy, things do not occur so quickly. Lags in the effectiveness of monetary policy actions are a severe problem for the RBI. The effectiveness lag for monetary policy can last a year or more.
Lags in the effectiveness of monetary policy actions are a severe problem for the RBI. The effectiveness lag for monetary policy can last a year or more. On top of that, the average length of recessions in the United States since World War II has been less than 1 year. If a recession started today, we would expect it to be over before any monetary policy taken today could begin to counteract it. In fact, the monetary policy action would start exerting its stimulative effect just as the economy was recovering from the recession, making policy pro-cyclical. This is the type of reasoning that led Milton Friedman to advocate increasing the money supply at a constant rate of 3% regardless of business cycle conditions.
One solution to the problem of effectiveness lags would be for the RBI to forecast where the economy will be a year from now so that it can take the appropriate action today. An action taken today would exert its influence a year from now. If the forecast was accurate, the policy action taken today could help achieve the final targets for the economy in a year's time. Unfortunately, economic forecasts over horizons of a year or more are not very accurate. In particular, it is difficult to forecast business cycle turning points, that is, precisely when the economy will move from expansion to recession and vice versa. Thus, the RBI cannot look ahead from today and say with certainty that there will or won't be a recession in a year. Hence, it doesn't know how it should change monetary policy today to counter any future business cycle movements.
We might make the following analogy to monetary policy making with implementation and effectiveness lags, an analogy adapted from one made by Milton Friedman. The monetary policy maker is like the driver of a car, whose job is to keep the car on the road. perhaps one that twists and turns around mountain peaks. However, this driver cannot see out of the front window of the car what is approaching. In fact, the driver cannot even see out of the side windows to see the current road situation. Instead, the driver can see only out of the rear window, receiving data on where she or he has already been. This is the information lag. To make things worse, the driver has very slowly responding instruments. The brake starts working only several seconds after the pedal is depressed. The steering wheel turns the car only after several seconds, and even stepping on the accelerator starts accelerating the car only after several seconds. This is the effectiveness lag. Finally, Friedman has emphasized that the lags between a monetary policy action and changes in the macroeconomic variables such as real GDP or the price level are not only long but also variable in length. In terms of our analogy, this means that when our driver steps on the brakes, not only does the car take several seconds to begin slowing, but the number of seconds varies over time. One time it may take 5 seconds, at another time it may take 8 seconds. In monetary policy making, reducing the money supply growth rate sometimes seem to take 7 months to begin slowing the inflation rate, while at other times it seems to take 14 months. This obviously compounds the problems the policymaker faces. This analogy is particularly effective at communicating the constraints faced by the RBI. In such a situation, it is no surprise that the RBI reacts cautiously to any new development. It is also no surprise that policymakers prefer the slow and steady approach, even to the point of excessive caution, over the speedy but perhaps brash approach.
If the RBI decides to pursue an intermediate target, it will have to accordingly adjust its instruments and operating targets to achieve it. Instrument instability arises when a change in the instrument affects the targeted variable over a number of future periods. Let us take an example to understand this instability. Suppose an open market purchase causes price level, intermediate target, to rise gradually over 12 months. An RBI wants price level to be constant from quarter to quarter. Then, if the price level is below target today, the RBI will conduct an open market purchase sufficient to raise the price level to the targeted level within 3 months. If the RBI is successful, the price level will be at target 3 months from now. However, the increase in the money supply due to the open market purchase in the first 3 months continues to exert its influence on prices, causing the price level to rise further. Furthermore, in the third 3 months, the initial increase in the money supply continues to cause price to rise, while the reduction in the money supply during the second 3 months causes prices to fall. This dynamic continues, and the required open market operations necessary to merely counteract the previous changes in the money supply to keep the price level constant may dampen down to zero as the effects of past changes gradually wear off. The latter case is a situation of instrument instability, where the RBI must tolerate ever larger changes in the instrument to hold the targeted variable at target.
Thus, instrument instability can arise when a change in the instrument affects the targeted variable over a number of future periods. For instance, suppose An open market purchase causes the price level to rise, but not immediately. Instead, this effect takes place only gradually over a period of 12 months. Suppose further that the RBI wants to keep the price level constant from quarter to quarter. Then if the price level is below target today, the RBI will conduct an open market purchase sufficient to raise the price level to the targeted level within 3 months. If the RBI is successful, the price level will be at target 3 months from now.
This problem can be countered most easily by lengthening the period over which the price level is controlled so that the price level is targeted to achieve a growth rate of, say, 3% over 4 quarters, but its quarter-to-quarter growth rate is not constrained further. An alternative solution is to attempt to adjust the monetary instrument today to keep forecasted future levels of prices at target. This approach accepts some failure to keep the current price level at target while maintaining the overall framework of price level targeting. However, it works best when the price level can be fairly well predicted, which may not be the case. A final solution is to use a variable that is more controllable, such as the money stock or an interest rate, instead of adopting an intermediate price level target. Another issue in any policy-making activity is the recognition that the policymaker works with a model of the economy and our macroeconomic models are imperfect. Hence, policy decisions that appear correct based on a particular macroeconomic model may turn out badly because the model used to formulate the policy is only an approximation of reality, and perhaps a poor one at that. Following policy advice, however nicely derived from an inappropriate or incorrect theoretical model, is potentially dangerous, since the advice may lead to exactly the wrong policy action. Thus, policymakers adopt a gradual approach.
We have seen how monetary policy makers can have conflicting goals. We have seen how price level goals and output goals cause conflict when a change in aggregate supply occurs, since the policy action that achieves the price level target exacerbates the failure to achieve the output target and vice versa. Other goals can also cause conflict, and indeed Tinbergen's results suggest that conflict is inevitable whenever there are more goals than independent instruments. The conflict among some of the RBI's goals is caused by changes in the identities of policymakers over time.
Conflict among some of RBI's goals is caused by changes in the identities of policymakers over time. Not only can a single policymaker have internal conflicts over goals, but two policymakers, specifically the monetary policymaker and the fiscal policymaker, can choose conflicting goals. The monetary policymaker, the RBI, controls the money supply and can adjust it in the pursuit of various macroeconomic goals. The fiscal policymaker, government, controls government spending and tax collections and can adjust them as it pursues its macroeconomic goals. The monetary authority is largely independent of the fiscal policy maker. This has both benefits and costs, but one cost is that the monetary and fiscal policy makers may disagree over the goals of policy. For example, the fiscal authority might have an output target and the monetary authority a price level target. If aggregate supply increases, the monetary authority will want to raise aggregate demand, but the fiscal policymaker will want to reduce it. The net effect is unclear, but neither policymaker is likely to achieve its target. In this module, we have learnt about optimal operation of monetary policy. We have learnt about different sources of lags between the occurrences of an event that brings forth a policy response and the eventual response of the economy. We see that the policy-making activity is the recognition that policymaker works with the model of the economy and macroeconomic models are imperfect. This gives policymakers another reason to move slowly. Policy actions are influenced somewhat by theory, but also influenced by years of experience that most policymakers have. Monetary policy makers can have conflicting goals. Not only can a single policy maker can have internally conflicting goals, but a monetary policy maker and physical policy maker can choose conflicting goals. One should hope that both of them should move together.